Let's go ahead and code the flowchart that we have created. So we always start at the top, and the first thing we have to do is um, set our places in memory. So we do that with the keyword var, and we have weekday rate. So if I open up weekday rate and copy this, Control C, and paste it in, and then comma, and then go to the next one, copy that, Control C, paste it in. Now, you might be wondering why I just don't type it, and that's because if I do that, I'm going to be placing in typographical errors. Since my flowchart works, if I copy and paste, there's no reason why my code won't work first time every time, and that's probably the most frustrating part of this class, is that students will go ahead and insert typographical errors into their code and then spend several hours trying to find out where they are. And if you do it this way, then we don't have to worry about it because it already works. Okay, once I get to the end of the line, I'm going to put a semicolon, tell them we're done, and then I'll go on to the next line. I still have more, so I'm going to put in var and then start my second set. So a decision doesn't give us a place in memory, but assignments all do. So input and assignments is where we find our places in memory. So we have two more to do, and that is rate and I paste it in. And then the last one is my final fee. So all the places and assignments, you take the left side of the assignment that is going to be storing it in a place in memory, and we just do this, and then we end it with a semicolon, and we're ready to go on. All right, so now that we've set up our program, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 2 slashes here for comment and say, okay, these are going to be my assignments. And I'm going to say, well, I have a place in memory called weekday rate, so I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and I have to say that's equal to, or not equal to, but I'm going to assign to the place in memory called weekend rate the number 5. Now, since I copied it from here to here, it's easier to copy it from the bottom to the top. I mean, the top to the bottom here, rather than going over here and open those things back up again. And I end with a semicolon, and then I do it again. So the next one is weekend rate equals 10. I simply copy this, paste it in, and say this is equal to 10. And then I end my semicolon. Alright, so now I've done my 2 assignments, and then I'm going to put in another comment, and that's going to be my input. By putting in comments, it makes it easier when you go back to take a look and see what you've done with your code. Alright, this is going to be my input. So I'm going to start out with my num dogs. I'm going to say I have a place in memory called num dogs, and I want to assign to that place in memory what's returned from my prompt when I ask it this question. And the question I'm going to ask is, how many dogs? And I close my quote and close my parenthesis. Now, I have another argument here, and that is, what do I want as a default value? And so I'm going to put in just 2 sets of quotes, which means that it doesn't have undefined and it'll have nothing. Okay, and then the next thing I have is my num hours. So I go ahead and copy that. I paste that in, and I say I have a place in memory called num hours, and I want to assign to that place in memory what's returned from my prompt when I ask the question, how many hours? Question mark, close quote. And again, I want to go ahead and not have undefined in there. I'm just going to put 2 sets of quotes, and don't forget our semicolon at the end of each of these lines. Okay, now I have my 2 inputs, and then I have one last one, which is my date type. And I want to assign to that place in memory what's returned from my prompt when I ask this question. And you can see that I'm using yes and no here, so I want to make sure that they know how to answer this question. So we determined that we're going to say weekday, question mark, and then yes/no, and close the quote. And then our second argument again is quote, quote. And we could have put yes in there if we wanted to, if we figured that most of the time it's going to be a weekday, and that'll just help people out a little bit. Notice I put lowercase yes, and that's because I'm going to use lowercase yes to test, and I don't want to confuse my user by telling them to use a capital Y and then have it come out wrong later on when that ends up being a bad answer. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do now is our decision. And the decision is going to be the same as this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Except it's going to be started with the word if, all lowercase. So if, and then parenthesis, and then paste it in, Control V. So if this is true, and there's no semicolon at the end of that, then I do an opening brace, and then inside that brace, this is what I want it to do. And what I want it to do is this right here. Rate equals weekend rate. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and copy the word rate, paste it in here, and make it equal to, and then the weekday rate, and paste it in. So I'm just going to take the 5 that's in here and put it into rate, and then use a semicolon to end that line. Whoops. Okay, now I'm done. That's the only thing I'm going to do on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and close the brace, saying that's what I'm done with my if. Then I'm going to put the keyword else in, and then have a brace that starts what's going to happen in my else. And on this one, it's going to be the same as that, except it's going to be weekend rate. So I can say, okay, well, the rate is equal to, and this is going to be the weekend rate. So if it is not true that they said yes to whether it's the weekday, then it has to be the weekend, and then we'll take the 10 out of here and put it into the place in memory called rate. And I have to end my else. Okay, and then my decision is done. So the next thing I'm going to do now is some math, and that is going to be that the final fee. So I have a place in memory called final fee. I want to assign that place in memory what's returned from this math. So since I've been copying and pasting, I can just go ahead and copy this and paste it in, and everything will be perfect. Okay, then I end this with a semicolon. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do then is my output. So I'll go ahead and put in 2 slashes, output. And I'm going to use my document write. So I'm going to use document.write, parenthesis. And since this is perfect, except this needs to be a plus, and I'll copy this, and I'll simply paste it here. And then I'll end my parenthesis and end my semicolon. Whoops, and end the semicolon. Alright, so copy and pasting. When I press preview, it should ask me 3 questions and run perfectly every time. So let's go ahead and see. I'll go ahead and hit the preview button. It asks me how many dogs, and I'll say there is 1 dog, and there is 1 hour, and is it a weekday? And I will say yes. And it says final fee is undefined, so I did make a mistake. And let's go back and see what that was. Okay, final fee. Final read. What is that all about? Okay, so I had a typo in my flowchart that obviously didn't work. All right, let's try it again. 1, 1, yes. Okay, final fee is $5, so we know that it did the week end rate. We'll do it one more time because we have to test the other side. We have 1 dog, 1 hour, and now we say no, and that's $5 too. And go, what? How could that possibly be? It should be $10. Well, let's go back and take a look at what we've done. And here's one interesting thing, and it drives me crazy because it happens all the time, and that is equal in JavaScript is not equal. That's a sign to. We have to use 2 equal signs. Okay, so there we go. Now we'll go ahead and preview it, and we'll say 1 dog, 1 hour, and we'll say no. And now it ends perfectly with the $10. So what did we learn? One is make sure you test your flowchart better because that doesn't work. But the last thing is there was no other problems here except there's one syntax error right here. And actually, it's not really, it is a syntax error, but it didn't give me a gray box telling me I have done something wrong. All it did was it never worked correctly. So it came over here and said, can you assign yes to date type? And the answer is true, so it always does the true side. So watch that in the future. When we're making a decision, something equal to something else, we have to use 2 equal signs because 1 equal sign says, I have a place in memory called weekday rate, assigned to that the number 5. So 1 equal sign assigned to 2 equal signs is equals.